Hello, I wanted to hop on a video to discuss one of the most important pillars moving forward as a human being on this planet while Gaia goes through her evolutionary process. And it's a pillar that was formed from years of deconstructing and deprogramming the identity or character in which was gifted to me upon coming and arriving to this earth, and then the self that was adapted through being raised through unnatural systems that have been normalized on the planet. And what that process looks like is learning how to really detach any sense of worthiness or identity or self from external systems at all, like just completely releasing these illusions that have kept us in houses of false safety in order to feel static and quantifiable. So one of the main pillars, I would say the first, in order to navigate this world in a way that is truthfully discerning and sovereign, is saying yes to this deconstruction process and starting to build and experience your reality in yourself from a state of inner sourcing rather than outer sourcing. What that means is that absolutely pretty much nothing on the external dictates your sense of self and or your actions. We are coming out of a time where the emphasis on trusting only the physical, only the material, only what we can see, as the core and how we navigate and build our lives and how we make choices. Whereas what's happening now is that we're being invited to relinquish more of that and replace it with the innate design of being able to birth reality from our inner realms. Now, this requires a lot of faith, a lot of trust, a lot of ability to sit in the liminal, a lot of ability to sit and build within the mystery. These are innate feminine designs that have been outcasted from our society for a long time and that are coming back online. Within this container, within this pocket of technology, we have the intuition, we have the extrasensory perceptions, we have our innate qualities as quantum multidimensional beings to navigate dimensional realities and to produce reality from an inner state of being. And you have to stay long enough in what you want to see externally, energetically, long enough for it to become reality, and not fall for the old programmings of fear and lack and scarcity to dictate your choices. Now, this has been the most seesaw-y type experience for me in my life, because it's taken years to even get to a place where I am in a conscious relationship and in a space to understand what voices are speaking, what tethers, what dust what like leftover residue of the old programmings that were passed down through not only how we were raised, what we experienced when we were children, but also just ancestrally, cellularly, what we're here to break in regards to generational curses and bloodline curses. And it is such a beautiful and wild process, because I can speak about it easily now, but it has required me to say yes to many descents into dark places. To face those demons of fear and scarcity. Now, when it comes to identity, a large reason why humanity keeps getting tugged along with like a carrot on a stick with these spells that keep getting cast is because people are not fully yet sovereign in themselves. So much of what we were born into and what we were raised into showed like pretty much is just as like, this is what it means to be a good person. This is what it means if you're successful. This is what it means. And so we have to untether from all of those things. And the reason why is because you will live a life that's not yours until you die if you follow that. And you also are then making yourself exposed to being susceptible to programs, because you are in an invisible energetic contract with systems and ideologies and other such methods of understanding the world through merging with certain structures to gain a sense of safety, self, belonging, community, etc. Now, the spell work that happened specifically during COVID was geared and woven specifically towards the alternative people, towards the people who are quote unquote free, the people who actually genuinely care, right? Like we have these ideas specifically within the liberal stance of things, but just in general, it wasn't just that. It was like it targeted everybody that you would have never thought of would be targeted. And that is because some part of that person's identity, no matter how rogue or anarchist or off-grid they was still tied into them, the level of them being a good person was still attached to these certain cultural systems and phenomena. And so that was kind of like the weapon, right? Like, it's like, well, you're not a fucking good person if you're not getting that, and all that. But that all has to do with people who are still functioning from a certain level of creation where they are not fully sovereign in themselves. They do not self-source between themselves and God, and their heart, like what that means without a influence from something else. Hopefully this is making sense. Hopefully you're following this. The reason why it's so dangerous to still be living with ourselves tethered in these waves or fads, it's because like you can see them happen, right? There's like one after the other, and usually the core of all of them is who's the biggest victim, and which is a weak and false way to gain power in this world, but it works. People manage to get away with it. Who's the biggest victim? And this is also how narcissism works as well. But just in general, each like wave of like thing that happens is always at the core. There's like some sort of thing around like who's the biggest victim. And the people who want to be good are like, okay, well, we need to care for the biggest victim, so we're gonna, and if you're not doing that, then you're not a good person. It's just like, it's not actual intelligent behavior. It's just full group mind tribal behavior. And so the inner sourcing versus outer sourcing is so important, because you have to be able to have clear discernment in this world. And, you know, this process for me has been through years and years and years of clearing out my trauma, of rehabilitating my nervous system to be in the present moment. Because most people's nervous systems and bodies are not in the present moment. They're stuck in some sort of loop, some sort of previous thing. And I'm not saying this as a judgment. Like, this is a part of what just happens with the habituated programs of the body to survive over time. And essentially what I'm saying is that if you're a human being on this planet right now and you really want to be able to walk forward and move in this world from a truly sovereign place and be not only just here watching, witnessing, feeling like you don't have anything you can't do anything, but actual active co-creator of the reality that we experience, or the reality that you want to experience, you need to say yes to the dissents. You need to say yes to deconstructing the ways in which your life is built on false foundations, and the ways that your identity is sourced from false coagulated streams of consciousness. It's like, you know, in the Matrix, in the movie, when what is that guy's name? Agent Smith. Yeah, Agent Smith. He can infiltrate any human in the Matrix and become them instantaneously when they're around Neo, or just in general, I mean, if they wanted to. And that is because those people are in contract with the Matrix. So therefore are susceptible to the energetic infiltration and programs of the Matrix. And that's why at times maybe you'll experience people in your life, you know, when you maybe bring up something that's like controversial to the program, or controversial to the pre-existing systems, or controversial to the limitations in which people have agreed to and accepted in their lives, you'll kind of like suddenly feel like you're like BFF, or your mom suddenly turns into like this like automaton. I can never say this word. Like more like a robot type person, where they're just like, they just like is like boop, red flag. And that's what happened during COVID too. Like, if you didn't have a mask, people were programmed like without even a thought. Like, there was no actual like, I'm an individual, you're an individual. It was programmed versus Neo. But people were trained to see that a person without a mask on was like a threat to the whole thing. And so, you know, it's like that's why it's so important to detangle yourself and your life and your identity from these systems. And if you're going to work and find success in these systems, and I'm not demonizing that by any means, you just have to do it sovereign. Otherwise, you are entering energetic contracts, not fully understanding that you're putting yourself at risk, not only for your soul, but just also like the way that you are influenced. And like, you know, this goes deeper and deeper in all the ways that we sacrifice because of scarcity and fear. And I'm like I said, I'm not speaking from a place of judgment. I'm speaking from a place where I've like dealt with this for years and years and years. And I was just like over and over and over again, I was shown, and it was exposed to me the micro and macro ways I was making choices that directly sacrificed my deeper desire or my knowing for material safety or security or whatever. And that's also, I'm not demonizing that too. There, of course, are at times where we have to make certain choices. But the whole point that I'm making is that make those choices in awareness. Make those choices in complete awareness of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and and like knowing you're entering something, entering a contract, entering an agreement. Just as long as you have that awareness, you are a sovereign person and you are functioning and creating reality from yourself. Let me see if there's anything else I want to add to this. Yeah, there's so much to be woven within this, but you know, it touches on, like, I don't know if y'all have seen my Substack article, but it touches on my Substack article where I'm talking about, like, in sidereal astrology, we're technically still Pluto and Capricorn. Everyone's like glorifying Pluto and Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius. And like, yes, we see that on the surface of things, but what's happening underneath is Pluto and Cap, which is like the foundations. So we're like, yeah, full speed ahead technology, Pluto Aquarius. But what's really happening is like, okay, that may be happening superficially, but what's happening on an energetic level is we're being drawn down into the bones, into the marrow, into the minerals, into the very things that we are building this forward momentum on. And that is more important than the illusion of momentum or the illusion of success or the illusion of growth. And you can start seeing the dissonance in the people who invested in the image over the actual soul a couple years ago. Even just like recently, if you have the eyes to see, you can see they have all the things. They have the expensive stuff. They have the aesthetic. They have the success. They have the Instagram numbers. But you can see some sort of fragmentation happening with the reality of where their soul's at, where their soul stopped and made an agreement for this, like a Pluto and Aquarius forward kind of thing, where, like, once again, back to where I started, the material. And we're all going to start realizing that that isn't the most important, and it's not the most glorified, certainly not. It's way easier and way more pleasant to be able to seem like your life is whatever it is without the actual soul work, emotional work to back it up for it to mean anything. And that's where we're going to be at with our, both personally and also globally, is it's not just about what we're building, it's what and how we're building it on. And as reality generators, we all have an individual responsibility to declutter our reality generation field. Not only to really live a soul-aligned life for ourselves, but also just for our children and for the future. Like, the immaturity around just full steam heading forward with things without going deep and looking at the bones and at the cellular makeup, you will just repeat the same things over and over again. And this is also how I feel about ChatGPT and AI. It's like a very open mirror that we could loop into, or we could not loop into, and it could be very different. But it would require humanity to be at a place where it's really willing to look at itself. And, you know, whether or not it's willing to look at itself, it's going to happen in whatever method or form it'll happen. Let me see. Yeah, but this is like a huge basis of my work at this point, because that's what I've been working on for so long. And I feel very confident in myself at this point to be someone who is very detached from any sense of goodness or success derived from external reality or sources. And this is also a fundamental issue, is like these people who have all of these, like this material wealth and the aesthetics and the selfish lifestyles, like, but aren't actually keeping up with the internal work. Like, that is a part of the problem in regards to actually having enough like resources dispersed for people, is because when we are also focused on and striving to keep this image upheld, and we're not investing our wealth and our energy towards the things that truly matter, that make human experiences on this planet easier. And I don't mean like comfort as king, even though that is pretty much America's and even the spiritual community's main focus. It's just like comfort, have to be comfortable. It's like, until we start looking at this type of thing, like this like individualism and this like incessant desire and need to keep the self-image of success and materialism stuck in time, to like have this idea of safety versus like being like, okay, wait a second, maybe this isn't what it's about. Maybe what it's about is actually investing in the internal work deeper, and seeing like how I can like loosen up some of this instead of going like, you know, like loosen up some of it and start going like this, so that the systems can start flowing better and people can have more resources, and our priorities shift naturally from that, because we're not so like dead set on keeping an illusion upright. But yeah, hopefully, how long has this been? I don't know how long this has been, but that's just what I want to share. I wanted to share it because I'm going to be starting to release ways to work with me. And that's like a huge key process that you have to say yes to, is starting to really dissect the areas in which your life is still propped up from like these older systems, and your identity is still propped up by these, or informed by these older systems, and really becoming just like a sovereign being who like knows thyself and is immune to manipulation and tribal consciousness, group think, and peer pressure and cultural pressure. And you can start seeing through the noise, and this whole other map starts appearing. And it's one that's aligned to your actual soul, the one that the blueprint you were given upon birth on your soul, before all the trauma, before all the coping, before all the survivalism came in, and actually get you on the sovereign path of creating a beautiful world with new architecture, new energetic architecture, where the natural abundance and grid of Gaia can come through and alive, where it's not just this false reality of lack and image and superficiality. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for being here and for listening. Mwah.